75 gallons of gasoline is not a simple purchase. It is the pyrotechnic signature of a calculated nightmare picture. This a local gas station, a quiet day, and an individual loading an industrial-scale volume of combustible liquid into an array of containers. It isn't for a backup generator. It isn't for a riding lawnmower. And it certainly isn't for a cross-country road trip. It is the exact transaction that makes a seasoned attendant pause, look twice, and mentally bookmark that moment forever. Now, imagine that exact same person days later standing dead center in the biggest missing person investigation of the entire decade while frantic federal investigators desperately dig through a massive mountain of discarded financial records. What if I told you the single key to unlocking the darkest secrets of the Nancy Guthrie case wasn't sitting in some high-tech lab or in a dramatic midnight confession, but was literally left gathering dust at the very bottom of a banker's box? We are talking about one single slip of paper, a receipt that finally connects the deadly dots between a suspicious disappearance, a grim landscape of charred earth, and a level of pure, premeditated chaos that would make a thriller writer blush. The establishment truly thinks they have this covered, but they aren't accounting for breadcrumbs left behind by sheer, unadulterated arrogance. This isn't just about a simple disappearance anymore. It is about a trail of fuel, a trail of cash, and a trail of evidence that leads directly into a dark place they never wanted us to look. Are you ready to see how one simple discarded receipt is currently dismantling the entire official narrative? Because what we are about to uncover tonight is going to completely change exactly how you look at every single accidental piece of evidence you have been told to ignore. So, keep your eyes locked on the screen because the chilling truth is about to get very, very hot. The exploding scandal behind this gasoline is not just a story. It is a masterclass in calculated deception that literally stinks of a cover-up so deep, it makes local authorities break a heavy sweat. Just reading the shocking headlines, we are talking about an individual whose entire public persona was strictly built on a massive foundation of lies and shiny charity galas, while behind closed doors, they were actively coordinating a true logistical nightmare. The exact kind of person who walks into a room smiling but hides a handwritten list of destruction deep in their pocket that no one is ever supposed to see. This is certainly not the first time this specific name has been heavily whispered in the darkest corners of this investigation, but it is the first time we hold the smoking gun literally printed on thermal paper. Everyone clearly remembers the previous controversies, where they slipped through the legal net with a smirk and a well-placed lawyer, but this time, the math is simply not adding up, and these glaring discrepancies are becoming impossible to hide. Under the thick rug of corporate secrecy, you really have to ask yourself why someone with this much massive financial power would consciously choose to operate in the dark shadows of cash transactions. Why avoid the digital trail if you have absolutely nothing to hide? We are talking about a pattern of behavior that screams guilt loud enough to violently shake the foundations of this entire town. Federal investigators are currently scrambling to connect these dots, but we already know exactly what the terrifying picture looks like. When you put them all together, the sheer arrogance is staggering. They actually fully believed that by paying in untraceable cash they were instantly becoming invisible. That the system would just gloss over a 75-gallon purchase because it was deeply buried under a massive mountain of other financial nonsense. They completely failed to account for the fact that someone out there would actually take the time to read the damn receipts. But the real shocker is not just the gasoline. It is the terrifying adaptation of the specific tools they use. The funnels, the chemical stabilizers, the entire twisted portfolio of an arsonist in the making, who arrogantly thought they were being clever. We are now witnessing a person who actively likes to play God with the fragile lives of others while simultaneously trying to pretend they are a shining pillar of the community. This is exactly kind of explosive controversy that does not just quietly go away with a generic press release or a controlled leak to the local media. This is the devastating kind of scandal that violently tore the mask off and finally showed us the grim reality of what really happened to Nancy Guthrie, while the blind public was being heavily fed cheap distractions about her simply going off the grid, or secretly starting a new life. Everyone deeply involved in this sick cover-up from the bottom to the very top is starting to realize the clock is rapidly ticking, and thermal paper does not lie. Even if you frantically try to crumble it up and throw it into a blazing fire pit, it still has a terrifying way of surfacing exactly when you desperately need it the least. And now that the receipt has been found, the entire house of cards is starting to completely collapse under the heavy weight of its own deceit. They can try to deny the purpose of the purchase. They can desperately try to claim it was for a mundane landscaping project or some nonsense equipment maintenance, but no one is buying it anymore because we now know exactly what was actually happening on that isolated property. And we know exactly who was holding the lit matches in the tense days leading up to the disappearance. Secret reports from anonymous insiders deep within the investigation are now aggressively painting a picture that is downright chilling and absolutely explosive, because these receipts are merely the tip of a very bloody iceberg that has been boldly hiding in plain sight for long months. We have been exclusively told by sources close to the forensic team that the massive financial discrepancies do not just magically end at the gas station. They darkly spiral out into a tangled web of luxury purchases and extremely shady deposits that categorically prove this was never about a sudden dangerous impulse but a cold, calculated execution of power. Imagine dropping tens of thousands of dollars in untraceable cash on gruesome tools of disposal while successfully maintaining a flawless public face of total innocence on social media. And at high-profile elite charity functions, it is a terrifying level of psychopathic detachment that would make even the most hardened career criminal blink. The outraged public is finally starting to scream for real answers. As the cold reality of the deep corruption sets in, because it is quickly becoming blatantly obvious that someone with extremely deep pockets and even deeper political connections has been actively sabotaging the desperate search for Nancy Guthrie from the very first day, terrified witnesses are finally stepping forward to describe an individual who was clearly seen transporting heavy industrial equipment in the dead of night. An arrogant individual who thought they were totally above the law because they could easily afford to buy the silence of the vulnerable people around them. But here is the dangerous thing about buying silence: it only ever works as long as the dirty money keeps flowing, and the damning evidence remains perfectly hidden. But the exact moment that thermal receipt hit the busy desk of a lead detective, the entire corrupt ecosystem of protection immediately started to disintegrate. The massive public reaction has been nothing short of blind fury, with wild rumors violently flying around the city about who actually funded these dark transactions and which high officials might be secretly on the payroll. To forcefully keep this under wraps, we are talking about a truly massive abuse of power where the critical investigation was not just accidentally slowed down by mere incompetence, but was deliberately derailed by malicious design. Anonymous sources are now calling this the single most significant financial cover-up of the entire decade, and every explosive new leak just adds more fuel to a fire that is already burning wildly out of control. They smugly thought they were completely secure in their high ivory tower of blood, money, and influence, but they fatally forgot that the brutal truth has a habit of violently tearing through even the strongest walls of corruption. Now, the terrifying question is no longer just what happened to Nancy. It is exactly how many other guilty people are going to go down with this rapidly sinking ship when the full horrific scale of this deceit finally hits the cold light of day. Because make no mistake, this is not just a standard crime scene anymore. It is a full-blown, systemic collapse of morality that has been brutally exposed by a single stack of financial stack. Records the fallout is coming, and it is going to be absolutely devastating because the walls are finally closing in on the big players who thought they were untouchable. We are looking at a potential tsunami of legal chaos that will violently shake the very foundations of the justice system, and possibly spark a massive resignation of officials who have been happily dancing on the edge of this dark cover-up for way too long. Investigative probes are now diving significantly deeper into the financial lives of everyone connected to this sudden disappearance, and the tension in the rooms where these crucial decisions are being made is thick enough to choke a horse. The public is waiting with bated breath for the first major arrest to hit the headlines, because at this point, the shocking evidence is way too damning to ignore any longer. We are talking about the very real possibility of massive financial meltdowns for those who funded this twisted nightmare, and a dramatic legal battle that will spill all the grim details directly into the public domain for the whole world to see. This is absolutely not just a case of a missing person anymore. It is an all-out war for the truth, and the people who desperately tried to bury it are suddenly realizing that they are the ones who are about to be completely buried. Do you really think they can get away with it when the entire internet is now intensely watching every single move they make? What happens when the last shred of protection is violently stripped away and these so-called untouchable elites are finally forced to face the brutal consequences of their actions? In an open courtroom, the reckoning is near, and you need to be ready because the next few days are going to reveal the exact kind of terrifying truths that make people disappear. For real. If you are still blindly thinking that this was just a tragic mistake, you are not paying attention to the sinister breadcrumbs. Smash that like button if you want to see raw justice served without any filters, and subscribe right now, because the exact second this case turns into a full-scale public exposure, you are absolutely going to want to be here. Drop a comment below, and tell me who you think is going to inevitably flip first. When the intense pressure becomes way too much to bear, the truth is rapidly coming out, and absolutely no amount of dirty money can stop it now. Stay tuned, because this is only the terrifying beginning. So there you have it, a twisted story that started with a simple piece of paper, and ended with the total explosive exposure of a corrupt system built on massive lies, dirty cash, and absolute arrogance. They genuinely thought they could hide behind their vast wealth, their elite connections, and their carefully crafted fake narratives, but they completely forgot one crucial thing. Hard evidence does not care about your elite status. It just patiently sits there, waiting for the right person to look at it. And now that the ugly truth is bleeding out into the light, we have to aggressively ask the tough questions they are desperately trying to suppress. How deep does this sickening rot actually go? And who else was hiding in that room when the sinister plans for destruction were ultimately finalized? And more importantly, are we ever going to actually see the powerful people who really pulled the strings face a real courtroom? The clock is aggressively ticking, and the dam is about to completely break. You have seen the damning evidence, you have seen the dark pattern, and now you are seeing the chaos. As their corrupt house of cards finally comes violently tumbling down, do not let them silence this massive investigation if you want to see the raw, uncut truth as it rapidly develops. And, I mean the exact stuff they desperately do not want you to know. You need to hit that like button right now and fiercely smash the subscribe button. We are tracking every single leak, every explosive new piece of evidence, and every nervous, desperate move from the powerful people at the top. Drop a comment below and tell me, do you think the recovered surveillance footage is going to be the final devastating nail in the coffin, or is there an even darker secret we have not even touched yet? I really want to hear your wild theories. Because, in a high-stakes case, this dirty, your guess might just be the exact missing piece we're looking for. Stay sharp, keep asking tough questions, and do not go anywhere. Because this is exactly where the story violently turns from a simple tragedy into a total brutal reckoning. Subscribe and stay firmly tuned.